looks like it's live. All right. Excuse me. There's going to be, let me see. I'm going to be using Brave because I was told that it moves better than Chrome, so hopefully this will be less lag. We'll see. I wasn't expecting it to take this long. There's some bit of a loud renovation going on nearby, so if you hear some booming, that's why it is. All right, so I'll be picking up where I left off. I am thinking what I might do is I may try to do I might do less stories and maybe do like a little bit of a critique of the story, possibly. And another thing, I'm thinking that if y'all want to, I can probably do like a full read through. That means not just like the first chapter, the prelude, but like the entire book. So if you really enjoy a particular story that you want me to read, just let me know. Might do that. Let's see. Okay, so where were I? This is the last one I read, Rain Haro. I don't know how much I got to say because Jesus, great, get off. I don't know how much I got to say about it because the storm kicked out my internet last night, but I found the world really, really interesting. I found it really fascinating. I kind of get fascinated by kind of like planetary landscapes, but the delivery was not something I really liked. My personal opinion was that it had a lot of exposition info. I guess an info dump, the mystery was kind of taken away. All I needed to about the world, or not all I needed to, but everything that I felt and saw was intriguing was explained or described or whatever, and I was like, okay, I'm no longer curious. You've answered some of my questions, so I'm going to move on. I personally thought that by having, just I try to like to compare it like Morrowind a little bit. When you played Morrowind for the first time, you kind of see this alien landscape, and you're like, "What is all this?" And it doesn't really you've given a description, but it doesn't really tell you what it is. It just shows you, and you can see that there are two moons, and while that is completely having planets with multiple moons is fascinating to me. And while it doesn't really tell you what the moons are, it shows you there's two moons, and it doesn't go into a whole lot of description about them, but you can later find there is lore about it. There's lore about the moons in the Elder Scrolls in Morrowind. And I think that when you're doing a world building, you don't have to tell everybody everything about the world you've built. Even though I can understand it, building a world is really difficult because you're trying to consider so many things, and you're trying to like really flesh it out. I'm in the process for my dark fantasy trying to flesh out the world, and I'm gradually moving closer and figuring out what I want to do for it, making a language, making folk songs, what is their religion, what is like, a currency, a marketing system, currency, culture, all those kind of things, and what fits. And so yeah, I understand it's difficult, and I'm not I'm not hammering on that because I think it was really fascinating for a Chaos Slinger to do, or excuse me, Rain Harrow, is it? It's Rain Harrow, to work on all that. From what I've seen, I think that's really that's some strong dedication. But it was just a lot of information at one time, and I was it kind of felt like one of those field trips you go on where you're like, oh, this stuff is all cool and you want to explore and check out, but then you spend time listening to like the guide talk, and yeah, it just kind of like really brought it to a halt for me. Okay, so this next one I believe is Ardaberger. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to fictions. What a wonderful Jesuit. Please feel free to read dots. Okay, read dots. Okay, dots. This looks like some kind of pulp style stuff. All right. I am I'm actually in the process of refining my art style. Hmm. Okay. Um, I'm gradually moving away from um, the more anime-ish style, which I liked when I was younger, but I'm not really cool with it anymore. And it really just kind of I'm trying to go for a little bit more of a mixture of kind of like a cartoon, like kind of realism. Or I don't know if that's the right word. It's kind of hard to pin down, but in any case. Okay, so this is Dots by Ardaberger. I think it had like about 4.5 stars. Controls profanity and sexual content. Okay, now as I've said before, um, if the sexual content gets like too detailed, I mean, like if there's some romance, that's cool. If there's some like fade to black, cool. But if I kind of like to compare this like the book I read, Gods and Legions. Like the writer, he gave you enough description to understand what was happening, but he didn't go into explicit detail. If this gets a little explicit, I will stop reading. Sorry. Okay, so mankind has invented the machine that can locate a genius hidden among the populace. With two simple tests, not only can a person find out they're a genius, but they also be told they're a genius at, but also what they'll be told they're genius at. Unless they find out they're a dot. The only thing a dot knows is that the world hates them. Okay? That is, unless you're a dot named Hank, the world discovers quickly that it needs Hank very much. But he'd better be, but he had better hurry. Okay. Alright, we'll leave the prologue. This kind of reminds me a little bit of, what is it? Or the concept reminds me of The Giver a little bit. Yeah, I am kind of noticing that Brave search engine is moving a little bit faster. It's not as laggy, although it still looks like it's still trying to do like some updates and such. So don't know what for. I thought I updated everything. Installing, it's like it should be installed already. but it's moving pretty fast for something that's installing, so that's cool. The seven contrary virtues, each. Let's see. Note from the writer. Liberty, humility, kindness, abstinence. What the f? Oh no! Crap! Go back. Yeah. On my other channel, I'm not as professional when it comes to language. I'm a little bit more just kind of out there and just talk like a sailor half the time. But okay, so liberty, humility, kindness, abstinence, chastity, patience, diligence, the seven contrary virtues. Each one protects us from a deadly sin. Together they save mankind from damnation, dispelling the evil our sinning reeks. Liberty, also called generosity, saves us from the sin of greed. Its offering of goods and services to those who need without expectation of receiving a reward. People who are generous know society is best served when the gifts God gave mankind are freely shared all. Well, its true genius at work. Do you know how an animal can smell fear? Well, people can smell a dot. We crush dreams, bestow blessings, and deliver sorrow. And Rio will happily kill us with the whiff of her hand. Nothing can be won here. Rio scarcely knew she thought these words, having said them herself often. Yet was undeniable death crawled after her, taunting Pacific waters, seeking to extinguish her beacon. She responded the way she did. Run, hide, get away. But money was growing scarce. She feared being unable to start her life anew on another far-flung shore. Christ, isn't this ocean big enough? She pondered, facing down her demon after abandoning the Soberano, I guess, in Sindai, saying goodbye to her staff of Mezu Sabai girls. What little she had going for her on the island, now called home, wasn't worth a fight. She first hid from death in the Philippines and had to be close to her homeland in Japan, but the throngs of people who made it hard to prevent reality she had hoped around Micronesia and Caroline Islands had never had an even thinner Crook Island. It was never enough. Death was unrelenting, and she tried Fiji next, and it seemed to have worked, but so that she had relaxed to let down her walls. Maybe here she could even make a friend or two. She was wrong. On the local ferry of Tavanuli to Savannasso, Rio stood from the forward deck and watched the sea grow back. Nothing she could prevent it distinguished more than a... Oh, what are you doing? Stop that. Ask for a new tab. Oh. Nothing she did could prevent it. Disgusted more than afraid, she flicked the stub of her Bindi cigarette into the rolling dune before heading down the top side and to search the 60-odd passengers for the other who was causing the chaos. She found him easily enough when his reality placed her below decks in an engine room. Greetings, Sopu girl, the man said through the razor-tooth smile. He wore silver manacas on both arms, running tight along his wrists and elbows. They wrapped along the sleeves in purple paycoat, the color of raisin wine. His shoulders supported leather pauldrons, boiled black like sin. They smelt of putrid fat and flesh, of imminence and animal dung. At his feet lay a pool of diesel dripping from a rusted tank. Only rags and other debris lay piled in dark corners, reeking of flammable fuel. This is a safety hazard, he said. Rio stifled a retch. She pushed her round red glasses further up her nose to better focus. A death ray stared into the man's blue eyes. They burned like an electric light. I will kill you where you stand, she said with resolve. The man's voice boomed, echoing off steel walls. I know that word baka. That's all I know. Oneno Nekodo, I guess. Rio blinked and stepped back. The man took a step forward, bending to a glare at her face. He spoke in measured tones. Do you know what this is? He gestured at the fuel tank. It's an auxiliary generator. It turns on an instant of power. It is lost to the ship. To keep it foundered, he tutted at the fifth pile. He tutted at the fifth pile of every corner. All it would take was one spark in here to cause it to burst into flame. Rio took in her surroundings. There was no space in a cramped room to engage in hand-to-hand combat. The man was too large for her to win at grappling. She took to begging for mercy. Please, there are women and children on board. Are you too stupid, little girl? He leaned in very close. Do you know how much I wish you were dead? Do you know how much I wish you were dead? Rio gritted her teeth. I've killed worse than you. The man stood up tall. Hundreds, he agreed, maybe even thousands. And what has it gotten you? He plucked the answer from her mind. Nothing and nowhere. I am millions strong. With that, the monitor on the ferry ground to a halt. All the lights on board went, leaving out the dark room as Rio's eyes adjusted. The man faintly glowed. The auxiliary generator roared to life, making a horrible sound. The man raised his arms above his head to clutch his silver manacas to glow concentrated as it were. As he released his grip, sparks flew between the sleeves. Stop it, Rio screamed, her feet frozen on the deck plating. The noise from the generator drowned out her demand. The man's laughter then drowned out the generator. Rio turned and ran. Remember my name, the man hollered. He struck the words deep in her brain. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say that. Aurelius Azariel. Rio found her way topside, dodging maintenance men who were working on their way downstairs to repair the ship. On deck, attendants direct messengers and to their muster stations in a case of emergency. Rio wasted no time. She grabbed a life preserver from the bin nearby, and she grabbed a life preserver from a bin beneath a nearby bench, and without even putting it on, dove off the back of the ferry. Within seconds, it exploded. Minutes later, it sank into the sea, leaving oily goo and pitiful cries for help that quickly faded. In another half hour, Rio was aboard a rescue ship, seemingly the sole survivor. There was another one, someone said about her at the recovery. He's on another vessel. Do you know his name? Aurelius, I think. Aurelius somebody. Rio had to run again. And using her mind, she visited the distant shore that beckoned within the safety of 1,000 searchlights. Maybe hundreds of thousands. How can one person be so mighty? It must be a trick, a scheme cooked up by death, or rather, to get her to run further. Still, if it were true, death could never blacken so much pure white light. Back at her apartment, Rio gathered up her things she still owned. The number dwindled at each time she ran so much at her entire life. She now fit in a single suitcase. She called near a nearby airport. Konichiwa. I. Oh, Kanichi. I guess that's Kanichiwa. I don't know. I didn't know that was how you spelled it. When she there was a when when is the flight to the United States? Anywhere, nonstop. And so dot begins. What do you think so far? Since this is so short, I kind of want to give it a little bit more of a breakdown. Um, this now I'll slightly speak from person. I've kind of struggled with this thing of combining languages. Okay, so um, how I have my pulp set up is I try to keep like a consistent feel. So the feel I'm going for in my pulp, for example, is the main character is human, okay, and she speaks English, okay. Now, when she's around other creatures and they speak, she cannot understand them. And I type this out as they spoke in language, and I specify this. You know, the first creature she runs across, it speaks in a language she can't understand. And this is done on purpose because you I'm trying to present the atmosphere through her own perception. She can't it's like, you've just joined this. It's almost, if you think about, like, you, the reader, and she are also on this adventure together. It's like you can't she can't understand it, and neither can you. So that's kind of how I present it. And when there's, but on the other hand, I do scenes where the creatures have their own scene and they're talking to each other. So I do translate. I do give them. I translate, and they do have like obvious accents, and but the point is to kind of like have this thing of they don't really understand. So in here, the connection here is as I read through and I see these words. So they're speaking English, but they're also speaking, I'm guessing, Japanese. I assume that because it's like he says, I guess he says baka and I guess konnichiwa. So my understanding is that they're both Japanese and they're both speaking English and Japanese. But my question is, why? Why are they speaking? If they're both Japanese, why don't they just speak Japanese to each other? If they're English, and if they both understand English, why not just speak English to each other? Because that's what kind of, me personally, that's what kind of throws me off. Is I kind of got the fact that they're bilingual, but I'm wondering why they're speaking these two languages now. It's not uncommon for people in the heat of a moment to revert to their native language. So, but even then, the case is if they're both Japanese, they both speak Japanese. Why not just speak Japanese? And if you know that the audience doesn't, primarily doesn't speak Japanese, you should just have a pure translation, or just like a translated meaning, because I know that sometimes translations are not translations are not accurate, if that makes sense. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. So, I guess if you were to think about it in terms of Spanish, is like muchas gracias is much thanks. So it's kind of like it's or much gratitude, dinada is no thank or thank is kind of like it's Denana is kind of like you're welcome, but its literal translation is no, it's not no problem or no thing, or its literal translation is no thing. It's not a thing, or it's not a problem, so you're welcome. It's yeah, it's cool, whatever. That's basically, you got the literal translation, you got the conceptual translation. I would say, give the conceptual translation of what you're trying to convey. If you're doing a translation, you could say, but me personally, it's just like I had to pause because I'm like, I don't know what that word means. So, um, I did on the second thing. I found the writing to be a bit. It had like a mixture. There was some action. I did enjoy that, but I found it to be a bit too poetic. And I'll be honest, this is kind of like something I don't like with anime. Is like the philosophy and the descriptions can be overly poetic and overly deep and philosophical. So like one thing I did enjoy, or was it? Her number dwindled each time so much that her entire life now fit within a single suitcase. That statement right there, that little description, tells you so much. I really like that statement because it's like your whole life, everything is can fit inside a single suitcase. Now, and especially if you're referring to females. Okay, females often carry, well, if they're traveling, they'll take so much, so many clothes, so many, hygiene products, personal things, and just all with them. Even if it's a short vacation, they just pack out. And you're saying that this woman fits her entire life in a single suitcase. Now, granted, we don't know the size of the suitcase. I would assume because she has to do a lot of traveling, that it's probably maybe about like, it might be about, I'm guessing like a it might be like a 3 by 6. Let's see, 3 feet, probably like around, it might be one of those little, it could be like a 3 feet tall, kind of suitcase, I'm guessing, but or could be a little bit bigger, but whatever. The point is, I like this because it tells you that this is all you are. You have nothing left, and that little statement right there is very good. But some of the other ones I had to. This one, let's see. Rio had to run again. Using her mind, she visited the distant shore that beckoned with the safety of 1,000 searchlights. I did not understand that. I'm sorry, I did not understand that. Maybe 1,000 searchlights, like, and I kind of get the idea, but I don't. I felt like it was a little bit too poetic, too flowery, too, what's the word? It's kind of like that form of art where it's, what is it? Abstract, too abstract for my taste. And that's not to say it's bad. It's not to say the story doesn't get better. That's just my personal thought on it. I am kind of interested in this concept. I'd like to see how these kind of. It does sound interesting to me. That was Dots by R. DeBurger, Book of I'm just gonna say Book of Generosity, the prologue. Okay, so on to the next one. Let me go ahead and say, give you a reputation, read your book. Yeah, if something is short, I will give more, I'll try not to focus too heavily on it, but I will give some feedback. Come on. Am I logged in? I hope I am. Oh, no. Huh. I'll do. I know. I logged into it, so I'll post later that I gave some feedback. I know I read it. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so your turn. Let's see. This is Coffee Quills, a premium. Like me to read Cloud Lark. Okay, open a new tab. Let's see what we got here. A Slice of Life. Okay, contains gore and profanity. Original ongoing game lit female led slice of life. Okay. The problem isn't her life, it's her folks. Saren is tired of living a lonely life in the island, but every time she brings up the lack of community to her parents, they tell her that it's better that way. Better not to have anyone else around. Better to have dad-vetted friends in touch only by mail. Better not to go anywhere in the transportation area to report anything strange. As she tries, she really does, it becomes crystal clear that nothing will change. The lure of Far Horizons is louder than ever. The last straw is when an attempt to abide by the rules fails, and even small pleasures are taken from her. Opportunity knocks as she throws open the door, determined to prove that she can take care of herself. Too bad the world is just as determined to prove otherwise. Okay, so according to this... okay, the story is aiming for PG level 13 of content at the moment, tagged with profanity, gore, just to be safe. So it's LGBTQ, LG friendly with neo pronoun use, proficient use. Okay, I do want to say, like, I'll say this. That kind of description, I really do like. That was a very easy to read description. And some of the stuff I have read, I have to be critical. It's difficult because, like, they use such a flow and flicker of words, like they just go around in circles. It's like, you know, the more straight level your words are, the better. And I know in some people it's like, if you do kind of have to have like a type of, dare I say, like, elementary school level okay. If you want to know more about the details of the story, we'll progress. Read on if you want. Zero spoilers. Yeah, I want zero spoilers. Okay. But if you have like a elementary school reading level in your writing, it's people are, I find, are more likely to read it and with interest, because you know it's these are common words that people use every day. So the less flowery words, the better. Siren picked her fork up and poked small holes into an orange mashed potatoes on her plate. She held herself back and waited until the last scrape of wood against wood had died down, finishing off a small gurgling as her dad poured red wine into 2 cups. Her father shook a napkin and placed it on his lap. All of them were ready to eat after a long day. This was the perfect time to catch them off balance. So I was prayer first, interrupted Dad. A small eyebrow raised even as he nosed the amusing quirk on his lips. Then we'll listen to your thoughts. She nodded as she dropped her fork, face flushing with a little bit over-eager. 15, almost 16 years they'd been living together on this island. She should know better than trying to skip past blessing. We thank the 5 elements to drink and eat: air, water, metal, earth, fire. We thank the 5 elements that we are all meet: luck, douse, charm, tread, and fate. Together with these 10 bring us laughter and mirth. We fill our soul and topple our plate. Nicely said, Siren. her dad praised, his smile splitting with his thick black beard. He placed on, he picked up his spoon and began patting down his potatoes to make dry lake for butter to melt. Oh, to make a dry lake for butter to melt in. Now you had something you wished to say. I was thinking, she started again, trying to regain a thread of confidence she'd felt minutes before. It was no use. Both her dad and father were staring. Both her dad and father were. Both her dad and her father were staring at the small bit of her heart not bit of her heart not invested in this small bit of her heart not invested in this whispered that she didn't have enough to go through with it. She could just stop right there, change the topic, and dinner would be ruined, but an emotional landslide created by years of longing buried that voice. I've been thinking it's time I leave the island. Just for a quick visit somewhere. She pops some of the mashed potatoes in her mouth, focused on the salted goodness instead of either her parents. She knew the look they'd be wearing. A quick peek confirmed her mental image. Dad had this again face, while her father looked more like one with frequent storms that fizzled against her dad's air shields. Why bring this up? Dad asked as he saw it off a small piece of white fish chewed on it. The action made it seem as if his beard was talking to her. The answer's still the same. Why? She looked up and flinched as they both pinned her with dark looks. Those weren't enough to shut her up, though. Not once she had finally gotten this rock rolling. This would be the last year to take on an apprenticeship if there was anyone of us on the island. If, reminded her father, there is anyone who shared your element. He drained his cup of wine and held it out to refill. It would have been more than happy to teach you the fickle art of charming others. And there's that. Siren gestured wildly enough that her fork flew out of her hands and splattered in the soup bowl. She felt her face grow hotter with embarrassment, but she didn't dare apologize. She knew her parents, if she did, they would use it as a confession to bring up the subject. Then they'd tell her that everything was fine. They'd say how much they loved her and finally change the subject quicker than it took the stone to sink. There's what? Asked her father, checking his shirt for stains. He let out a sigh of relief when he found none, then accepted he filled a wine glass from her dad. Thanks, love. I feel I'll be needing this. Siren commented her dad. What exactly do you mean? He took a slice of soda bread from the middle of the table and set it on the side of the soup bowl. Use your words and we'll know you have them. Charming others, the key word is others. What if I want a lover someday? Someone to spend nights snuggled up under a blanket with? Or how about having a friend? You do have friends, said her dad, landing himself some soup with his as he rescued the fork. It was set next to the remains of the mashed potato. The green of the spinach soup curled forward the orangeness. Or all those weekly letters I send going to the ghosts instead. Friends I can be with, retorted Siren. There's only so far a level of friendship can go when I still haven't met a person, haven't shaken their hand, wouldn't even be able to pick them out from a crowd. Siren, we've talked about this. Her father took off his glasses, using the tablecloth to polish them. That was a warning sign. She had about 2 minutes to convince them before they'd close the topic again. I can go to the next island and come back. Dad can manipulate the balloons we have. The sudden intake of breath reminded her that she wasn't allowed. Sorry about that. We got some inconsiderate neighbors. Wasn't allowed to hear at the transport area that the balloon should have stayed a secret. One small stupid mistake was going to cost her everything. Father, don't, he snapped. This is where on any other day he would have placed his glasses on his face. Today they stayed on the table. The wires of dull gold hung in the sunlight coming through the curtains. She knew it was coming, but she turned to her dad. Dad, I didn't mean to see the balloon. I was just proving us once again we cannot trust you. She didn't speak, a tightness in her chest, feeling as if she had stopped breathing for a couple of seconds, and then started at the end, making it her fault, talking about how much disappointment he was to them, and then having her leave to go cool off somewhere. Her father was looking at her dad, and her dad was shaking his head. Siren, there's so much potential in you, too much, if I'm being honest, that we can see every day that you put much of your mind to. But if you're going to go somewhere and live and be anyone in life, you need to learn to listen to us, to trust us. She nodded, I do trust you. Her gaze switched to her father, and even when other people say, careful, even if other people say I shouldn't, Siren ended. She looked directly into his eyes. They were dark amber, the same shade as buckwheat honey she loved to dribble on warm bread. They were just as sickly sweet, as dangerous to people as honey could be to trapped insects. Siren, this is not what we wanted to hear from you, her dad said, drawing her gaze back to him. Time and again, you flaunted breaking our rules, and then you wonder why we can't trust you to go to the next island over and quickly come back. I'm disappointed. I know your father is as well. The anger that had been clawing at her throat, hot from acid bubbling in her stomach, spewed out. Well, I feel the same about you two, she shouted, knocking her chair off the floor as she stood up. You're always disappointed me, and I'm the product of your raising. Then you shouldn't be disappointed in yourselves first. I'm not flaunting it. I really didn't see it by accident. Siren, look at me, commanded her father. She did. For a second, her vision started at the waistline above the table, and they had gone up three intricately carved fishbone buttons before she reined herself in. No, she folded her arms around her chest and shut her eyes, facing the front door. I don't want to be shut out anymore. I want to continue this conversation. If I can't leave the island, no one else can come here. At least give me a better reason than what you've given me since I started asking. Siren, his voice wasn't angry, but soothing. Understanding she hated herself for letting it get to her, it promised that no matter what, everything was going to be okay. And while it felt that he used his voice on her, she never heard him use it on her dad, which told her where she placed in comparison. Siren, dear heart, open your eyes. Every single voice in her head was screaming and wanted to obey. She counted, adding up every number, chanting their inclinations in her head, doing what she could to prevent the stone that was burning up in her brain. Sari, his nickname for her since forever. She opened her eyes to see him staring at her. We all need some time to think about what happened here tonight. He stood up, breaking his gaze, walking closer. I want you to take some time and cool down. Go outside, walk for a bit on the island, find something else to think about other than visiting our neighbors. Duck your head underwater, then when you come home, eat dinner and go to bed. There will be no further talk tonight. We will discuss your punishment in the morning. Jesus. His hand reached out and ruffled her hair. Do you understand? Yes, Father. And that was that. Utter defeat in less than 5 minutes. Good. Now go on. He removed his hand from her head and gave her a small push towards the door. She didn't fight it, banishing the numbers and flowing within the order. It was when she had clicked shut behind her that she brought the numbers back up, added colors, and put half of her mind to work on deciphering how the numbers totals could turn into hues, tints, and shades. Gods, I hate myself for doing that. Her father's voice was ragged, on the opposite of what it had been earlier. It makes me so sick to my stomach every time I have to charm her. Siren rolled her eyes. Too bad for him. Hearing that didn't make her feel any better. I know. There was a small sound, almost like a chair being tipped back in an upright position. When we do what we must because we're the only ones who can. This is going to get worse as she gets older. What are we supposed to do then? Drug her meals to keep her here? Siren felt her eyes widen, and within her a small need to walk grew. This isn't going to last forever. Which part of her obeying her or her deciding she wasn't going to stay there? There was a heavy sigh. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I know you're bound in as well. Me being bound has never bothered me. It netted me to a kind husband. After all, it was and a smart, vibrant daughter. I need to move. The need to move was growing. The need to move was growing, itching inside Siren's soul. She took a finger and laid it on the whirl of the door's wood. Tracing rings and lines might buy her another minute or two. What do you think we should do? We can always bring a few people we trust here, create jobs for them. We have a community. Her dad's voice was in a flat tone. Were what he thought and what he said were the opposite sides. Oh. Or we could take to the skies again, fly the old airship and raise the flag, and go back to being in danger. And her father's voice trailed off and she could almost see him shaking his head. Tempting, since at least I know how to deal with all that. Still, no, we can't. We can't do that. We'd lose her in the first market we came upon. Siren took a step, another, then another, holding back a sigh, letting go her mental equations and submitting to the charm, walking out of hearing range. I'm sorry, I wanted to go do something a little exciting, she mumbled, keeping her voice low. Her dad was a master of air, which meant that those little phrases of the wind, usually snatched away, were sure to make it to his ears. Her body leaned left toward a small freshwater pond that was right. Her father had told her to cool down. Instead, Siren jerked herself to the right and began climbing up the only hill, singing a song about 3 fishermen in a boat. Her tune wasn't that good, but needed a voice. To voice 3 different people was enough to assuage the feeling that she was heading in the wrong direction. Instead of enjoying the coming purple haze of dusk or the golden dragonflies darting about, the topic on her mind went to the people and the lack of others on the island. There was way too there was a way to broach the subject again. If her father agrees to charm them, then maybe Dad will see it's not such a bad thing. She kicked a rock, listening, and it thudded down the side. She was already near the top, and she could treat herself in a beautiful panoramic view. It wouldn't be so bad if that happened, right? She asked herself, swing between the two palm trees of the edge that keep the feeling moving. I mean, one or two people is better than none. Yes, her heart told her. It could be bad. Two could be just as bad as one, and one was the loneliest number. Her dad would argue that zero was, but zero didn't really count because it was like being dead. A dead person doesn't care about anything. A glimpse of white caught her attention. It wasn't the fact that there was white on the island. One tree had white blossoms every spring, and the petals blew everywhere. This thought wasn't the soft off. This wasn't the soft off white. It had a band of another color with it, but it was dark enough that she couldn't place it. It didn't belong here. She could tell that much, and that made it interesting. Siren swirled around the palm trees one last time before heading down towards a unique color. It wasn't by the pond. It was meant her inner voice was being annoying, but it wasn't clear that the ocean was. But it was near the. But it was near the ocean. It calmed down somewhat. Water was still water after all. She kept through the underbrush as it drew closer. It was taller than her, whatever it was, and her dad's shields could have kept it from landing there, but clearly they hadn't, thankfully. Her eyes widened. It's a seashell, she half whispered, half squeaked. Clasping both hands over her mouth, there was no way she could let her parents know about this. Well, at least not before exploring it. First, well aware of the standing rule that stating that anything strange was reported back, she took mental notes. It was a canonical seashell, that was obvious, even if she couldn't bring the exact species name to mind. Outside was white, and secondary color had just been able to make out earlier was a hard cheese orange. There were small bits that seemed damaged, chipped away, as if that was where it differed from what she had been taught about seashells. This shell, for instance, had a tree growing from the other side of it, possibly double her height if it was planted in the ground and the shell rested at it, or maybe a little over her height if it wasn't. There was also a windowed craft in the black light inside, the shining brightly through the lace curtains, nailing the idea home that there was no ordinary object. The shiny engine was half stuck in the mud, two parts of proper sticking up. That meant that at least one person on the island. Siren stopped and listened. A few night birds called out to one another. Bat wings flapped over her. Favorite mammals came out to feed. But there was nothing she could classify as a human sound noise. No singing, no humming, cursing, nothing. Hello, she called out. Creeping forward, the birds stopped, but that was it. She must have scared them. Bit by bit, she walked into the corner and laid a hand on the shell. It was as cold as ocean during the winter's midnight, and when she took her palm away, she needed to rub it for a few seconds against her skirt. Siren leaned around, taking in a circular window that sat above the door with the planes edged in gold. Where the shell would have normally been, the panel-treated wood had been spotted into place tight enough to where a single speck of light escaped from the edges. Another step closer was beautiful, a little eerie. It was beautiful, if a little eerie. The wood from the odor. Well, the wood from the door was sleek, blackish brown, but some light engravings started at the bottom slides, and they didn't look as if they were complete. If they were designs, they seemed to be too much open space. If it was a language, she could have guessed she was seeing letters, or a single pictograph words rather than sentences, or words spelled out letter by letter. But this was only a guess. Hello, is anyone home? Siren took another step closer, a bit confident in the silence that she was going to be there. The latch offered no resonance under her hand. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door wider, winced in a small crack of the hinges left out, and slipped inside. I ain't gonna lie, that was really good. Let's see. So, So I want to compare this to the other one I was describing, the one by Ray and Harrow. I think the Chaos Slinger. This, what this does really well, is it talks about it brings things up very naturally. So when they talk about like, oh, we're gonna pray first, and then we thank the five elements, and we'll meet. We thank the five elements to we thank the five elements to drink and eat air. So you're getting a sensation of this world. So these are more Oriental elements. So actually, no, it's not. The Oriental ones are earth, fire, metal, water, and wood. I think air and metal are considered the same thing. So this is kind of like a mixture, I think. And so it gives you kind of like a very it's you're introduced like, okay, there's a type of system here. There's a type of atmosphere, like I guess is a type of elementalism belief structure, and it's brought about in a very natural way. You know, it's not, oh, this is like, it's not telling you like, oh, inside this house are these three people and they're eating and they said a prayer to the five elements, and these are the elements, and they're the elements of this, and this element governs this. This element governs this attribute. This element governs charm. This element governs luck. This element governs fate, etc. It's brought in so naturally. So the world is kind of like mostly just explained through dialogue or kind of interaction, which is really good. So it's a good way to introduce it. It's, you're not that it treats you like you kind of understand it, and it explains it in a simple way. I will be honest, there's a few things that confused me. I do like how, I will say again, I do like how the writing was. It was very, like, elementary writing, which was easy to keep up with. There were a few parts that kind of got a little ahead of itself, and I had to slow down. Now, I will confess, the part that kind of confused me was it's not okay. I understand she's got two, dads, air quotes. The thing that kind of was confusing me at first when I read like dad and father and dad, I'm like, is that a typo? And then I said like, oh no, okay, I see it. The thing that was confusing me was that considering the words are interchangeable, so basically dad and father means the same thing essentially. Which one is the biological father is my question. It's just, because if you call one dad and you call the other one father, well, I'm assuming father is the actual biological father, and then dad may be the spouse. What, what that's, giving them actual name. I think it would be, understandable, a little bit understandable if you had, because I mean it's clear that okay, it's a couple, all right. That's the clear part. But you can also do that by saying this one is father, and then this one, or she calls one dad, and then she calls the other one by his name, right? So it's like if you got like this, the one's the dad, one's the stepdad kind of thing. So you're like, what is it? Let's just say his name is, I don't know, John or whatever. She calls one father or one dad, and then she calls the other one John. So it's like, and then you kind of understand that, you know, John and the two are a couple. You understand that, but you don't have to come out and. But just reading that kept throwing me off because I kept wondering who was talking, and I didn't really have like a clear placement or a clear mental image of the two. I was just kind of like, I was assuming she was talking to one person at the time, not two people. So that kind of threw me off. Yeah, I think like this. I think this is very interesting. Um, it is very personal. I like that. Um, I don't think there's a big issue with slice of life. I think that if done right, slice of life can be very engaging, and I think this was well written was very well focused. It did kind of like drop a little bit of exposition on you at the later parts, and I think a few sections it did kind of like trail off, but other than that, yeah, I definitely I like this one, and I would definitely recommend this book, or this yeah. So this is Cloud Lark, A Slice of Life by Coffee Quills, and yeah, I give it a read. Okay, so it's almost noon. Unfortunately, I will have to go. I've got some work to do. I'm a bit behind on my arc 7, or my 7th arc for my pulp. Um, yeah, like I said, I've been more on a drawing binge lately, and I've gotten a lot better. Um, my anatomy's gotten better. Actually, I think I can probably. I think I can. Well, maybe a little bit later. Just caught the stream. Okay, so someone says I just caught the stream. Let's see. If I'm gonna try to see if I can set this up to where I can actually read what people are saying. Um, so Sanji, yeah. I unfortunately started late. I've been restless as again, not being able to sleep. Uh, like just up at, I kept looking at my phone. It was like I tried to go to bed at 10. Looked at my phone, it was 12. Looked at my phone again, it was 2. Looked again, it was 3. And it was just like, this is ridiculous. I can't sleep because my mind has just been like going on and on. And I have a lot of, got a deadline. I've got a contract I got to finish up on the 20th. And it's, so I've got like until Thursday to get it turned in, or I don't get any payment, unfortunately. And I've got, for context, it's I work at a music studio, and I have to film. There's one guy I film um, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He's an athlete at basketball games. I film him in the evening time. And I have to edit the videos, get them uploaded onto our film for a film crew, and then I also have another piece of content that I'm hosting and I can't get anyone. I need like it's kind of like a boxing thing, and I need at least 2 to 3 people to help me with it. One to film it, one to kind of like referee, and then 2 people to box. And people are telling me they're interested, but no one shows up. So, and I have to make 4 to 6 videos about that, and no one's showing up. So, to get the thing done. So, and unfortunately, sometimes like our equipment, people don't take care of it, but yeah, blah blah. Yeah, I've just been, I don't know, maybe I've just been stressed out lately. Hopefully, I will try to be on earlier. Yeah, so I do have a slight announcement that I wanted to say the other day. I have several new pulps in the work. I've been kind of like, I've taken a slight break from Knights of the Autumn Crown, to, just because I've been having some inspirations. One is a supernatural Wild West style. It's kind of inspired by Hunch Showdown. If you know what the Weird West is, or the Doomtown, basically think supernatural Wild West kind of setting, and it also takes some inspiration from the Dishonored series, Bioshock Infinite, and if anyone remembers, there was an old show called Have Gun Will Travel. It's very inspired by that. So the one of the male main characters is inspired by the guy named Paladin. So that's something I'm working on. I'm also working on a more of a modern, maybe futuristic kind of cyberpunk-ish light series. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff I'm working on, and it's just trying to get it all. It's not that I don't have enough time. I've got plenty of time. It's simply that I'm halfway waiting on other people to do their stuff, and I do have deadlines, but I'm waiting on other people to, do their part, and they're not doing their part. So, sorry, bit of a rant. Yeah, let me know in the comments, or if what you guys would like me to do, because I'm thinking I might do like start doing like, I might do like find a book that I do a full read through of it, because right now I'm just doing like prologues in chapter 1. Let's see, and like I said, if the story's longer, I may just read through it. But I'd like to do a little bit more of some commentary on it. But I'll try to save that just for time, and I'll probably kind of I think I might start trying to do a live stream where I focus more on a single story at a time, rather than trying to get like read through multiple stories at once. And if I do read multiple stories, I'm going to try to figure out how to time tag them so people can see what that story's about. Let's see. I agree. Charmed One is a nice job with the world building. No problem. A lot of films to study design. I'm an animation major. Oh, a lot films your study. To be honest with you, Sanji, I don't. The studio needs people to do film directing. Um, that's a lot of work to keep it up. Only have to. Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't care to do film work. I have done it. I just we got a few people we work with, and they're like such prima donnas, um, and it's like there's always this. Okay, look, I'm the director, so I'll take what your ideas are, but ultimately, it's my job to direct. You know what I'm saying? So it's that mix of trying to make sure they're happy, but damn it. Oof. Mainly what I do is I joined the studio as a film producer. Um, Not as a film producer, excuse me, as a music producer, I meant to say, because my other channel is I do music production. Actually, funny story, when I was working on my pulp, I saw a meme how Tolkien wrote a language and then he built a world around his language. Um, and when I was learning to do music composition, I was heavily inspired by the Zelda music from the Zelda series, and I would watch videos of how the breakdowns of how they made music, and specifically Ocarina of Time, how they would say, okay, we need to make different songs, and you only have 5 buttons, so you essentially have 5 notes, and you need to be able to make multiple songs from just 5 notes. And the breakdown was that I should know his name. He's the composer for all the Mario and Zelda games. But basically, what he did was he created. It was a combination of a D minor and a D major, and I think that was referred to as a D minor 6. And it was from this that he was able to compose all the songs from Ocarina of Time, just using those 5 notes. And interestingly, because it's like supposed to be quote unquote 5 notes, but it's actually 4 because it's actually a D and then a D at a higher octave. So I started doing that. I started practicing by making music using that method. I would find 5 notes, or preferably 4, one with a higher octave, and I would make compositions from it. And they sounded so ethereal, and it started to inspire me. Like I made one track or one song that kind of reminded, and it was the image that I got really helped me flesh out the world I was working in, or the world I was working on. So, yeah. But that's about it. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. I do appreciate all of y'all for watching, and yeah, thanks for I apologize. I'm still exhausted, but all right. So I'm gonna head off. Thanks all y'all for your suggestions and for the advice. Yeah, I do think that whoever said for me to use Brave, I really, yeah, I think it's moving faster than Chrome is. It seems to be a lot less laggy. So anyway, you guys have a good afternoon, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, okay, hold on. Sanji says, same, I was inspired by Gwendy Tavosky work. Suing no dialogues to build a story. See you until next time. Okay, yeah, cool. Also, yeah, one thing I would like to ask is, let me know what y'all think of this idea. So, I would like to maybe at some point have a kind of like a dialogue with some of y'all as writers. So like this is what we'll do. I'll read your story. This will probably be the thing where I read like one story at a time. I'll read your story, and then I'll talk to you. I guess we can either do like through the chat, or, you know, you can tell me like, hey, what inspired your story? Uh, what do you, how do you, you know, how, what, who is inspiration for you? Like who, you know, what gate, just like kind of like the ins and outs. Because for me, I saw this on the forum earlier. Like, what inspires you to write, and what actually inspired this story was it's kind of like a bit of a therapy for me, believe it or not. Because I do write in a few. There's a section in the second arc where the female main character kind of has a freak out from she's trapped in this she's kind of like buried underneath all these this brush and debris, and it's so piled on that she can't get herself out, and she has a claustrophobic panic attack. So that was actually something that I've kind of that was the purpose of me writing that piece in there, was to kind of get that out. And because I have claustrophobia, but some of it is just kind of like relating certain things that I've felt and didn't know how to express, so I express it through writing. So yeah, I'd like to do a future thing where I'll kind of want to like talk to other writers and see like, hey, where did you get this idea from, and but